First of all, thank you all for coming here. You are here, I guess, that is to talk about moderation or looking for a comfortable place to take a siesta. But I try to speak loudly so you can sleep, okay? I did those things. The relevant part is that I became full-time Drupal developer on mid 2009, and my Drupal profile is eoipso with a 0, but I'm not a so prolific contributor. I try to contribute back to the community, going into the stage occasionally on Spanish meetings. Well, moderation. First of all, moderation is not needed for everyone. So if you have a little blog with a folk, with your partner, you don't need to moderate his content, and he doesn't need to tamper with your content. So this is typically for big organizations that have big websites, and is based on the lack of trust on the writers. So you give permissions to some people to write the content that is going to be displayed in your website, but sometimes you don't want them to publish freely what they want. So this implies having some roles. Some roles are more empowered than others. Some are only writers, and others moderate content and can have a various set of permissions. If you think it enough, you will realize that it makes sense. Okay, companies, especially big companies, spend a lot of money in communication, and ultimately the content they display on their website is going to be the public face of that company. So you wouldn't allow to anyone to tamper with your code and to change it freely before deploying it, right? We are here developers. Companies don't want to publish whatever a writer is thinking. Look what happens when this is allowed. This actually went live in a printed paper where they were calling the fucking Serbian. Well, I guess this started as a joke. I'm gonna pass this, okay? This started as a joke, as an internal joke, which is good because we all work and we need to release stress, but that shouldn't appear live. Okay, so it's fun for us, but it's not fun for the guy who approved that content. The solution I found when I faced this problem was based on Workbench moderation. Workbench moderation was developed and sponsored by Palantir. I don't know if I say it right, Palantir. And this part of a larger suite. The Workbench suite is a set of cool modules that work together very, very well. And, well, to say a word about all of them, the Workbench module provides you a place where to go to find your content. It solves the problem of having to go to admin content node page, and it gives the users that are allowed to access their Workbench a place to find their content, what they edited, and all the content in the site. Okay, Workbench Access is a separate project, and it increases the level of distrust on the contributors by defining some sections on the site, and doing that with a vocabulary and the taxonomy terms on it, or a menu structure, and then you assign permissions to post or edit or everything inside that particular section. And Workbench media and Workbench files, I never worked with that, but I understand it's the same principle as Workbench, providing a good interface for finding content, but for media and files. Okay, here in the upper left corner, we can see the Workbench module with a nice big picture of George Demet, the CEO and founder of Palantir. And, well, you can see, or not, well, those are all views, 3 views. The first one on the left is a user view with the photo, and then all the content George can edit, and below that all the content on the site. This is all built with views, which is important because you can edit it very easily. So if you want to add the roles that a particular user have on this page, it's just edit the view, add the field, and you're good to go. On the upper right corner, we can see the Workbench access. It's pretty small, but you get the idea. Those are the sections defined by a taxonomy terms vocabulary, and this is how you assign editors to this particular section. Right? You can do it with individual users or by roles. And then on the lower left corner, Workbench Media and Workbench Moderation on the right. We will get in more detail of this screen later. So let's think of a real-world example. Imagine a client that comes to you and asks you to build a small magazine, right? And they tell you, well, we just need to approve the content created by the contributors, then correct it a little bit, and publish it. But then at the end, at the testing stage, they realize that they have, I don't know, requirements like, well, Bob isn't really an editor, but for some sections he needs to act as one, and this other one can correct content. So you need a framework or a way to build all this and to make it flexible for all these variations. Okay, for these examples, the first thing that I would do is defining states. Okay, so based on those specifications, I thought that it would be nice to have these five states. Okay, the first one is draft, and the last one is published. Published is where all the content is supposed to go. But before getting to published, you need to go through all the other states. Right, so here we have draft, needs approval, so the content is pretty good. Then you send it to ready for correction, where linguistics corrects the, I don't know, spelling mistakes and all this, and marks it as ready for publishing. Then the guy who will take the blame if something wrong goes live hits the button and publish it. Okay. Next thing is defining the transitions. You can define the transitions you want. These are only for this example. And transitions are the allowed paths between states, right? So in this example, a content starts in draft and then needs to move to needs approval, where the editor approves it and makes it go to ready for correction, and then the publisher publishes it. All right, so it's a good idea to label all these transitions based on the roles that are allowed to do all these things. This is good not only for you to clarify the workflow that you are building, but also for your client, because After that, you will have to answer or to build the documentation or answer the questions they have. So you might end up with something like this, where you define that the writer can only create new drafts and edit his own content on the draft state, or the editor, he can act as a writer and moderate content created by the writers, and so on. So the key concepts here are states, transitions, and permissions. Permissions, from my point of view, are the key of all this. Okay, we will see that later. States define where the content can be. I imagine the states as buckets with a label, and with all content in that bucket, and usually refer to roles. It's easy if you are free to do that. If your roles are not forced by other components of your system, to assign a role to each state. So one role can act on one state. Okay, and in Workbench moderation, these two roles, draft and published, are the only ones that you are forced to have, and all the other ones you can define them freely, and you can have as many as you want. Okay. Yeah, this diagram just shows all the states with articles on them, and these articles move from one state to the other and towards the published state where they should be, if the content is good enough. Then transitions. Transitions are this pass between two states, and there is actually a limitation. This is, well, not the only thing I don't like, but this is a limitation of Workbench moderation, is that the transitions are always between two states. So you cannot have in a scenario where you have maybe after approving the content and sending to ready for correction, in parallel you send it to marketing to use better images or whatever, and when they are both done, go to ready for publishing. This is not possible. As you see here in this screen capture, to define a new transition, you choose one state and the other, and you toggle the transitions you want. You may activate all the transitions. Here in our example, the transitions, well, the transitions actually are actions. So states were based on roles, and transitions are usually related to actions. Here the actions would be finishing the first draft of the content, right? So when the writer thinks that the content is finished, it passes the content along to the editor, and this feature of Drupal article here would be moderated, and this would be done based on permissions. Permissions are not only just to allow the transition between one state or the other. Permissions can be okay, I have written an article and I have sent it to approval, but can I edit it in the approval state? Well, Drupal doesn't stop me from doing that from scratch. Okay, so you need to define this kind of permissions, and when you face this moderation problem, you find that there are a lot of them, and they are very specific to the needs of your client. Luckily for us, Workbench moderation provides a very good set of tools and functions and hooks and alters to do this. So I think of all this. If this were a board game, the states and transitions would be the board, and permissions would be the rules. So they define how you play all this game, right? Can you read that? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Here in our example, this article waiting to be approved. You can ask yourself, can I edit this content while it's waiting to be approved? Well, if I edit it, should start a new moderation, or I can edit it freely. Then what about an editor? Can he edit it, or do I take credit of my own content if he edits it? And other users maybe can see the content you are writing, so you don't overlap in the same article. Right? So you need to define all these permissions, and it's better that you do it at the beginning because it affects how you structure your moderation system. But it can get really tricky, right? Because here you have a set of states for all your site, a set of transitions for all your site. But what if you need to have different states per content type, right? Maybe your little magazine now does documentaries on face mold Drupalers. Okay, and these documentaries, they skip one step, or maybe they just have different states, or maybe it's based on the domain. If you are working with big companies, they usually have different domains with different websites, so it might depend on the domain. Yeah, custom permissions per state and custom reactions when you trigger a transition, right? To get a notification. Hey, you are an editor. You have a new content to moderate. Right? Send an email to all those users in the editor role. Here, there's a screen capture of the actual code of Workbench moderation, and they thought of this problem to have different permissions per node type, and they say here, do it carefully. If you activate this, well, bear the consequences, right? Because it can get very messy, and that's only for the permissions, right? It doesn't handle these custom reactions per transitions and so on. So how does it work? Workbench moderation. The first thing it does, and it's not a minor thing, is rewriting the interface. Okay, so it needs to be really easy because these modules, this Workbench suite, is not thought for developers or people that know Drupal, how it works, and all the Drupalisms. So it rewrites the interface to make things easy to these users, to these writers or journalists, etc. Reuses the built-in revision information. So Drupal has this revision system where you can add revisions anytime you edit your content, right? So Workbench reuses this, and it adds a little tweak, so it can be more helpful. Loads all the moderation information along with the node, and that's really helpful if you are building other modules on top of Workbench moderation to customize the moderation to your client, and you always have your moderation information in the node, and that's really helpful. And it stores all the moderation history. So who did what, when. Okay, so if you maybe make a transition from approval content for needs approval to ready for correction, that gets stored and it's part of that revision. Okay, then exposes all the information to views, and it has panels integration. So the key of all this is allowing you to have a frozen published version while you can work with the content. So right now with Drupal core, if you publish an article and then you edit it, that edition goes live, right? So how does this? How Workbench moderation works to do this? It uses the node. Okay, it doesn't appear here. It uses the node table to store the latest published version. So if you need to get the latest published version, the version that is showing on the site live, you go to the node table. But the latest editable version might be different than this and is the latest entry on the node revision table. Okay, and yeah, this allows you to have a published version and an ongoing moderation process for a second version of the article, maybe because you found out that there are some mistaken data or whatever. Okay, the rewritten interface goes like this. This is when you add a draft and there is no published version, you get a change on the tabs, on the Drupal tabs, where you can see the draft or edit the draft. And then you get a little block here under the tabs, allowing you to moderate the content right from there if you have enough permissions. Okay, this interface changes if the states change. Okay, so when you publish this article, there's a new tab called New Draft. You don't edit the content; you start a new draft. Okay, and you cannot moderate it because you cannot unpublish content. Okay, and then if you start a new draft, that would be the most complicated case, right? Where you have a published version and an ongoing draft that you can edit, right? And finally, the last tab called Moderate here that shows you all the revisions of that content. And by showing you this, it also shows all the transitions that were made and who did those. So here I can see that Data Frost, a user started an article, and then the admin that can bypass all the permissions took that node from draft to published, and that is the published version that is in green, and then another version has started that is in red and that has active moderation on it. You can also show differences between two revisions using the diff module. About views integration, well, just does that. Adds all the information about the moderation inside views, so you can load all this information, and it adds two special things. One is the content filter to tell if the content type is moderated, and the relationship between the node you are actually seeing and not the author of the node, but the user who did the last transition on that node. Okay, so if a node has been approved, it's been the last action that has suffered. So this you could access this user from views and loads all the information in the node. And finally, provides a little API so you can extend Workbench moderation, and it has 3 hooks which are worth mentioning. The first one allows you to alter the access on the node based on whatever the context is. So we have said that we have all the information about the current revision, the published revision, and the loaded revision, because you can load an older revision. Okay, here in this moderation access alter hook, you can set this access variable to false based on the moderation state and the operation that you are doing on the node. You can also alter the list of states allowed by the configuration you have done of the transitions. So you define a set of transitions, but then you can alter this set of transitions by implementing this hook and telling, okay, now the node is in this state, but based on these conditions, you can alter and allow another set of states. And another hook that just fires whenever there is a transition. So here, by implementing this hook, you could take the node, the node you add in the message you add in the revision, and just email it to a set of users. And that's the presentation. I'll try to show a little bit of a video. So just a few things. Here I'm logged in as a basic user who is cool. Okay. Is it working? Who is a writer and a themer. Themer is just a role. Doesn't mean anything for the moderation. So all these are views, and you can actually override this page using panels, because it has page manager integration. And here I can see that this user has three last editions, and in this article you can see that this is the node that I use for the screen capture. I can add a new draft, and by adding a new draft, I will get, if I save it, well, maybe I can edit it. Okay, by saving it, you have a new a new path here, node ID draft, where you can see the draft, and node edit works as always. To activate moderation in a content type, just go to structure, content types, and then maybe for basic page, edit the content type, and here you have to enable revisions, and then you can enable moderation. Right? Then you define the default state, and the published state is this one. When I said that things can become trickier, it's good to have a page to check all the permissions on the actions you are going to use. Okay, there is a page for that here in configuration, workflow, workbench moderation, and then check permissions. You can check for a role, for writer, and ask if he can edit moderated content on article. And it tells you what are the permissions you need to give to this user in order to do this action. Okay, and last, the permissions. You see here. There is a long list of permissions, and they define how all the users are going to use this system. You can administer Workbench moderation, view all unpublished content, which is nice to have because you can also have it for free with Drupal 4. And well, there are two special permissions. These are for the Workbench module. Here by default in the Workbench table, you have this My Drafts, and you have several tabs, and you can define who can access these tabs by setting these permissions. But these are only for the default states. So if you have different states, you will have to define these tabs and to clone those views in order to show all the content in that state. Just in a minute. Okay. The rest of permissions are pretty self-explanatory. Okay, moderate all content from one state to the other state, right? And in the Workbench page, you have here one tab, which is My Drafts, and you can alter these views and add a new view listing all content in that state, so users can find the content that they need to moderate. Okay, so an editor, maybe a publisher would go to ready for publishing here and just move it to publish. Now I have all the transitions available because I'm logged in as an administrator. Okay, I would go here, and the node disappears from this view and goes offline. And that's it for an overview. Yeah, thank you. how many of you have faced the moderation problem? Did you use moderate, the module moderate, or what did you do for workflows? Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Actually, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I get your. I think that while it's true that you can only move it along states and you don't have the ability to define different kind of actions, if you play with states and transitions and with some little custom code, you can get to a broader set of actions that you would get with workflow. And said that, I will also tell you that while I was preparing the presentation, I checked all the dev code from repository, and I saw that there is a Workbench moderation version 2, which is not finished and crashes everywhere. But I saw that it depends on a different project that is called machine state, and that will give you a lot of power in that aspect. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, and maybe I expressed myself in a bad manner. Uh, yeah, you have here in okay when you are making a so, so let's take this article and start a new draft by starting a new draft. You can also leave moderation notes, and you could use this to do this, and you could access to this information and uh, and use it in that hook I showed to send it by email. So you are a moderator. You can send it back to draft and say, well, those 3 paragraphs are no good. Uh-huh. Ah, okay. I'm not really sure if you can do that with Workbench moderation. Maybe later, if you want, we can figure it out. Ah, okay. Oh, no, not that I know of. So what's your the mo? Is it public, your module? Okay, okay, nice to know. So you mean the states and the transitions? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would work in the same way as you usually work with nodes. So if you translate the node creating a new node, you would have to moderate both nodes because they are separate pieces of content just linked by uh, well they are linked. So one is in I don't know in Spanish and the other in English. And if you do this other kind of translation, it is the same node, so you moderate that node, but you don't have the ability to moderate the translation of each field. Okay, you have to trust that the translation, yeah, 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 sure, sure. Actually, one recommendation in an earlier version to send notifications was using rules to send these notifications. Okay, thank you very much.